right, well, game 2 just started, and if Levon Aronian wins this game, he will win the FTX Road to Miami. What's happening on the board?
So we see the modern defence, one we very rarely see at the top level these days, because it is so risky, it is really provocative as black. Black's not fighting for the centre at all. White has this nice pawn centre. Instead, black just kind of creeps forward, puts his bishop on a decent diagonal, and, OK, this last move by Aronian, this shows he just wants to play solid chess. What do you think of this opening choice from Wei Yi, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, we once had a bit of a clash in the modern, didn't we? That was one of the only times I managed to get something against you. It clearly indicates that he's going for the win. He knows it's a risky opening. In general, the setup that black's played is very cramped. You give away, look at white's centre. White's centre is fantastic. 2 pawns there, controlling, a lot of squares. So that's why it's risky, because you're just, you're probably just slightly worse. But he's got to take risks now, having 2 blacks left, and he's got to get 2.5 at least out of the last 3 games. So he needs to win one of those games at least with the black pieces, and that is something that I'm sure Lev will be quite happy to see as well, because he could clinch it in this game.
And I just wanted to mention that little pawn move that Levon Aronian played, it's his pet variation. He's played it 3 times before, 3 victories, and he will have fond memories here. And now the game is developing, with black challenging in the centre. And this knight coming to the E7. Oh, my fingers. This knight coming to the E7 square. That's a little bit unusual, actually. It's not the most popular line.
Yeah, black's knights are a bit passive, I guess. Some, at least, foothold in the centre for black. He's hoping that white closes down the centre at some point. That would really be nice for black. If white closes the centre, black has more flexibility. Black can push his own pawns forward on the king side, perhaps. But Levon is not going to break the tension. He's going to keep those 2 white pawns side by side for as long as possible. Rerouting his knight, meanwhile. Levon loves this setup. He just loves putting a bishop in the centre. We've seen it in the kind of e4, e5 type of openings. We've seen it in the Sicilian. He finds ways to do this as white. And we see it now in the modern defence. This kind of knight duo perfectly poised.
Yeah, I mean, if you put black's pawn in the centre back 1 square, the opening is actually what we call a hippo. And the general rule is any opening named after animal is rubbish. So if you can think of can anyone think of a good, good animal that's actually a good opening?
Dragon.
That's rubbish.
Pelican.
And the dragon's not really, it's a mythical animal, I suppose.
Pelican.
Yeah, all right, OK. All right, you're not supposed to use 2 examples that quick just to shout me down. Yeah, pelican, yeah. OK, that's enough. That obviously didn't work very well.
To explain why it's a hippo, normally if black's pawn were just 1 square back, black would be kind of wallowing in his first 3 ranks. Like a hippo would do in the water or in mud. They just wait and wait and wait, and then when their prey comes forward, when their prey comes too close to them, then they come out of the water and grab you.
Is that one of your favourite openings, David?
One of my favourite, especially in blitz chess, speed chess. It's super effective if your opponent isn't familiar with the plans. But also, look at this kind of symmetrical setup. It's just easy to pre-move, especially in online blitz. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, a couple of developments have happened, so the centre has been closed. Black's pawn came forward, and Levon said, OK, give me the space. Grabbing the space, blocking this bishop. And we're going to maybe see a King's Indian type of setup. We've seen reminiscent, we've seen similarities here with the King's Pawn openings. Now we see similarities with the King's Indian defence, where black has this setup, the bishop in front of his king, and he wants to break out on the king side. But this is actually not normally a good idea when when the 2 white knights sit on these squares. If you play on this side of the board, the white knights will be ready to actually attack the black king. So, yeah, computers always hate this type of structure when white gets a space advantage with these 2 against maybe these 2. The white pawns just clamp down on everything, and Levon says, OK, I don't really care, I'm just going to step back. If you want to explode open the position and go on an attack, I will just take your pawn. And, for example, if black recaptures, the white knight starts leaping forward. Some attack, maybe, against the black king. Levon actually plays some of these setups as black himself as well, so he's very familiar with the types of ideas. And in the current position, what do you think, Simon, Jovanka? Are we going to see Wei Yi go all in right now? Pawn forward.
I suspect so, I have to say. And the idea that you highlighted is very instructive, because I know a lot of us, and surely a lot of viewers at home, will always feel this fear about that black pawn advancing, and will feel a sense of panic. And to have a kind of a remedy to this pawn break is quite handy to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, white's knight could also come this way, and this pawn is attacked 3 times. It just feels really weak for black, to be honest, compared to a normal King's Indian, where white's maybe distracted on the other side of the board already. Normally, black's bishop as well is placed slightly better. Here, it's just staring at a pawn.
Yeah.
It just feels a bit loose, so I'm not sure whether now's the moment, but if you don't play it now, what else do you do for Wei Yi? Big question.
Yeah, big question. I suspect some more manoeuvring, some more kind of mysterious moves might happen, and then, as David says, there will be a pawn break. Has to be that way. And, well...
That Wei Yi. It has to be that Wei Yi.
Wei, yeah. He's got such a great name for pawn.
Yeah.
And anyone else who has a great name, well, apart from Wesley So?
Wesley So, yeah. Ding, of course.
There must be lots of good names out there for puns. My mind's gone blank.
Yeah.
Well, Duda has the song.
Yeah.
Duda, Duda.
Sometimes I say howler, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's quite nice.
I have a cousin who has that DJ Howler, that's his name.
Really?
Yeah. You can find his music somewhere out there.
Is he on Spotify?
I think so.
Okay, I'll check it out.
DJ Howler.
But yeah, at the moment, this is not the way that he would have wanted the final to go. And it just depends. I think I would be so tempted to play this move now, or at least it maybe expand on this side of the board. Potentially, you could argue that black's pawn can come forward and you can try and create a square for your knight, but it is a bit weakening.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that the setup the whites adopted here is actually really worth remembering against the hippo, because the hippo is actually it's a pretty underrated opening, and it's going to be my next chessball course, because I play it a lot as black as well, and I remember Luke Shane, talking about English players. He often plays it in must-win situations because you keep all the pieces on the board. But the way that white's set up is really, really good setup, actually, because you kind of stop a lot of these breaks. Those knights are nicely positioned. You can use your H-pawn. I mean, if you can move the H-pawn to, all the way up there, you get an ideal situation, because then one break you've got to stop is that one that David has demonstrated multiple times, that F-pawn, this one here coming forwards. This is really the only way that black can get sufficient counterplay. I think without that move, black is just cramped and white's always better. So yeah, just remember the setup if you're playing against a hippo. Is bringing the knight around, putting the bishops like this, I think is a great way to play. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, yeah, because he needs to do something in this position, because white's got many, and he has played it,
he has
I think, understandably.
Yeah, and OK, he takes back with the knight. So the idea of the pawn capturing and maybe white's knight coming to the edge of the board, trying to break through on this square, maybe this was just a bit too scary, but he has prevented that with his last move. Knight takes pawn. If we'd see a knight trade now, then neither of white's knights can jump forward. One has gone, and this square is no longer available because the black queen covers it. So white's knight is a bit stuck. And actually, black has great chances here because these two pawns are very nicely placed, very flexible. They can step forward. So I don't think we'll see a knight exchange from Levon Aronian. The reason they used to tell me when I was young that every Russian schoolboy knows you should capture with a pawn on f5, you should capture towards the centre to control all these squares. So the reason this is the case is because in the current situation, Wei Yi took with a knight. Clearly in Russia, they teach things different to China. But here, white has a really nice outpost on the e4 square. And it's an eternal outpost. The white knight can plant itself here, and this will never, ever get kicked away. It also attacks some really nice pawns. But meanwhile, OK, it looks like we're mixing all the openings because white's pawn stepped forward and black, maybe trying to break down this pawn chain, he's just given up a pawn, and this is reminiscent of the Benko gambit.
Oh.
So we've kind of had modern that turned into like a hippo, that turned into like a king's pawn opening, that turned into king's Indian, that's now turning into a Benko gambit. It's like all the openings thrown into one.
Chameleon. Yeah. And what do we think about Wei Yi changing the nature of the position? Because now it's become very, very dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like it. I mean, he's got to win. I think both players are playing quite sensible. Lev, I think, has done the right approach. Your opponent has to win with black. Let him over-push. Let him extend himself, which he has to do. And Wei Yi has sacrificed a pawn, but he's got all the pieces on the board, some dynamic play and some sort of typical Benko ideas, I guess. White must be better, though. Saying all that, White must be better in this position, definitely.
Pawn up and nicely centralised pieces that we've been talking about. OK, he pushes this pawn forward. That's really risky. But I guess his idea is if the white pawn steps forward to attack his knight, he can actually safely just play pawn takes pawn because there is a pin on this file. The black knight cannot be captured because the white rook would drop on a1. Wow, so complicated.
Yeah. This is a big game. I mean, this could end the match, this game now, because Lev has gone for this type of position where Wei Yi has overextended himself. But, Wei Yi's kind of now in a really all-in situation.
Yeah.
I mean, White is better, but it's very tactical, very complicated here.
Yeah. And it seems like Levon Aronian is just so not phased, He's got...
Barely thinking.
I know. And this position is so wild. I mean, it would have been a good investment of time just to just think about the position for a few minutes and decide where the pieces are. But, well, Simon said he likes swinging rooks, or rook overs, rovers, and there we have one as well. The rook steps forward to the a3 square, maybe threatening to go all the way to the right. And again, such a crazy position.
Yeah. Are you proud of that move, Simon? Is Levon worthy of joining the...
Don't say that.
I don't say that. I meant like
Sorry.
Rover Club.
Sorry, David, can you just say that one more time, a bit slower? Can Aronian Lev join the Swingers Club? Well, we haven't...
If it swings over and attacks
David,
the black king...
can you do me a favour later? Can you ask Lev that on the interview, please, David? Can you do it for me, David?
Rover.
Last day, can you ask him if you can join the Swingers Club?
We'll see.
I do like that move. It's very typical in this situation, and it's just I mean, the rook has that opportunity, which David has beautifully demonstrated there, coming all the way to the king's side.
For example, yeah.
And you often find that it's black's king, which will end up being in a lot of trouble later on. And maybe that line you just demonstrated, well, OK, the queen covers it, but you get the general idea. It's just a good move to improve your position, improve your pieces. Yeah. And it's now back on black, who's a pawn down, and he's got to demonstrate something here. I mean, he can't take the pawn in the middle. I mean, that's a poison pawn. What else can black play here, David? Or Jovanka?
Yeah.
Good question. This would walk into a pin, as you mentioned, Simon, and if you take the other way, then I guess the knight is destabilised, and once it moves, the bishop in the centre will be loose. Yeah, what else do you do?
Can you see an idea, Jovanka? Because I'm struggling, actually.
I'm struggling to find a move, because, I was thinking initially, yes, but the knight can just jump forward, attack the rook. But that's not a helpful move either, because the knight is totally unstable. Once the rook moves, the knight is forced back, so we can probably strike that option from the list. But then again, what else to do? Because black's pieces on the right side, his king is so vulnerable, and you can see it there. He took a step back for the knight.
Yeah, but now David's move surely is so tempting.
I mean,
here.
Just look at that light squared bishop that white has. That is a killer piece.
I mean, give up your centre. It doesn't matter if you're going to checkmate. And the white bishops are both pointing towards black's king. The white knights are both hanging around black's king. The white rook can swing over, and the white queen. Now, that's nearly every single piece is suddenly homing in on the black king, and you're a pawn up. Yep. So pawn up with the attack at the moment. This is if he plays that move, I mean, doesn't that move just look fantastic?
It's beautiful, I've got to say. I don't really see a reason why not to play this move. How do you even defend this pawn as black? It's not easy at all. It's attacked twice now from the knight and from white's bishop. If it steps forward, then you leave some really weak squares in your camp. The white knight can jump in. We know what we say about the knights in f5. Yeah, I mean, if this pawn is defended by the black rook, the other white knight jumps in to attack it, getting ready to swing the white rook across. This gains time. How else do you defend this pawn? Do you have to slide the black queen across, for example? But this looks a bit kind of shaky as well, with the black queen now on the same file as a white rook. Feels like all the tactics will work for white. White's knight can jump in maybe into the centre. I mean, just again, even at the cost of a pawn, even if black can defend everything, just swing the white rook across. Feels like a pack of cards right now, just a tower of cards ready to collapse for Wei Yi. The computer says +4, which I'm a bit surprised by that it says that much, but that must mean there's already a knockout blow for white. And I mean, if this isn't it, then what else? It just looks fantastic.
Oh, I just checked the computer evaluation. That knight move to the edge of the board, it is a winner.
It wins. Yeah, it's just, and it's so natural. It's the first move that came to your mind, right, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were showing it, David, for a couple of moves already now. Yeah. I mean, you just increase the pressure on black's weakness. I mean, it's a move that Lev will obviously see here. I mean, you can't miss such an obvious move when you set up like this. There's probably other good moves here as well. Yeah. You can push the pawn to that square. You know, similar idea on the light squares, but they just don't look as strong, do they? Why not create a threat?
And it would be a consistent, like, logical follow-up. It's basically just flowing from what he did in the opening. He put his knights on this side of the board, he lifted his rook up the board, he put his bishops on these attacking squares, like you said, and the next logical, consistent follow-up would be, OK, let's go for the attack. So it's kind of, he's done step 1, step 2, step 3. It would make sense to make step 4 now and go for the Black King.
Do you think he's, because Levon Aronian has taken a pause, do you think he's just calming his nerves? Because obviously when you are winning, you get into a state of overexcitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned, Jovanka, you asked him, do you get nervous? And he's like, no. So, I mean, and the way he, you know, his body language does kind of indicate to me that he really doesn't get that nervous. Maybe he's seeing some other tempting options here. That's the only other thing I can think of, why he isn't playing that move immediately. Oh, right, well, that's very surprising. He didn't play the knight over there.
So logical and didn't seem to have any drawbacks. But instead, he kind of semi-defends this pawn. It is still attacked 3 times, so a bit of calculation required here. Can black take this pawn? I'm guessing with the bishop, because I'm a bit worried about getting pinned along this diagonal. So maybe taking with the bishop right now. At least black gets, if black can survive, I'm not 100% sure he can. Over the next few moves, it looks very loose for black. But if he can, then he has 3 mobile central pawns to at least try and push later. I'm not a massive fan of this one as white.
No, definitely not. I mean, it's not a very aggressive move. He should have gone for the more aggressive move, definitely. Maybe that is a sign of nerves, that one.
Yeah.
Just like you said, he played basically instantly Levon up to this point. He built up a winning position. He spent barely 1 minute on his clock. And then finally he slowed down, spent 3-4 minutes, and not the best move. Not the most, at least not the most consistent either. So very surprising.
Yeah, surprising. And whilst the players are thinking and Wei Yi is considering whether he can grab the pawn or not, well, we're having a selfie competition. And we are asking you how to show us how you're watching us in the tour. And John Brazel says that he is watching the show from this glorious Sunday morning in the park.
Oh,
you know, so, and he's also cheering for Lev Aronian. It's a big Levon fan there. And Cosmos says, and yet another tournament round. One day you win, one day you lose. Could you remember Cosmos yesterday? He played, he won quickly and tuned in to watch the show. Today, unfortunately, it was a bad day, but good game. Good thing it was a quick game, which is also good news.
Yeah.
And, OK, we have a move from Wei Yi. He did not grab the pawn, and instead he just reinforces the protection of the G6 pawn.
OK, interesting. We mentioned this type of move earlier, but it is purely a defensive move. I guess black's also hitting the white A pawn on the edge of the board, using the black rook now, using the black knight, using the black queen on a diagonal. How does Levon react? Now it's less tempting to jump to the edge of the board with the white knight, because everything's covered there.
Quite like this move. I mean, the queen is finding a better square. Yeah. He can also come over in front of the black rook and place more pressure on the centre along the half-open line. And I'm starting to think that one move from Lev is giving actually Wei Yi quite quite an okay position. I'm saying that quite softly because I'm not entirely sure if I'm right. But
I mean, when we see the evaluation bar, it's hard to be too optimistic about Black's position, but it does look better than it did.
Yeah, and he is a pawn down, so the evaluation bar is always going to be a bit wonky here. But the pawn down maybe not so important with so many pieces on the board and chances. But I things have got better for Wei Yi over the last couple of moves. There's no doubt about that. And Lev's now got to really work out what his plan is, because his last move was just a defensive move. He didn't take the opportunity when it was there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true what they say. You know, sometimes chess is all about timing, and I always think about that Eminem song. You know, you can lose yourself, that one shot, that one opportunity, and unfortunately, it has a really bad chorus. You can't have that one in your mind when you're playing chess.
Gotta lose yourself.
Because you can't have the words, you're going to lose yourself, because then you'll think about losing, and then that you might manifest that one. So.
I do get quite a lot of Eminem songs stuck in my head during chess games.
Do you?
Yeah, there's yeah. Be careful, I better not sing all the lyrics to them. There's one about mushrooms, which for some reason stuck there. Don't know who it is though. It's just like I can't remember the name of the song. Don't know where that came from. But he's played this move now. But I mean, it's strange, isn't it, David? That you know he's done this now. Why is he doing it now when that pawn is defended?
Really surprising. Maybe he's just kind of, his rationale is that, okay, what else is there for white? You kind of have to go for the black king at some point, otherwise your centre might collapse, your queen side is a bit shaky with white. Yeah, maybe he just decided there was nothing better. Or maybe the move just wasn't on his radar last turn, and now it is, but well, say surprising. And okay, one of the white pawns drops, it's level material again. Where he's playing on that side of the board, though, when the other side is very shaky.
Isn't he a bit... He's a bit stretched there, isn't he? Maybe.
Yeah, that was my vibe as well. Immediately I thought, hang on a second, that queen could be overloaded. You know, she has to protect the g6 pawn, she has to protect her rook. But I think the tactics are working in Black's favour there.
That was it. My Fault by Eminem.
The song?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
It's better than his first album, right? He has lots of aggressive music.
I think it is from his first album, that one, or one of his first albums, definitely.
Anyway, let's because the position is super wild. Let's head back.
It's really heating up, guys. So we do see a rook trade, and big question: does Black take back with the queen or with the knight? If you take back with the queen, you do abandon your king side. Firstly, this square under attack. Maybe the white queen jumps in, threatening some really nasty checks. It's, I mean. It's all about the black king. Yeah, and it does feel like, OK, he did take with the knight instead of the black queen, but it does feel super shaky. This knight is on the edge of the board, far, far away from the real action that's going to happen on the king side. And how does white break through? How do we justify the +3 almost
+3 now
valuation for white?
Wow.
There must be something. Is it just bringing the white queen in? I guess this gets kicked back by the black bishop.
Go the other way, can't you?
Could you go the other way, so on the light squares?
This way?
Yeah, line it up.
Yeah, line it up. Hit this pawn. It's attacked 3 times. Can the black rook defend? This is ugly.
It might be necessary, right?
Just to defend the square. The one thing, again, we don't want to allow is white's knight to jump in to the dream f5 square. OK, he actually chooses a different square for the white queen. Sneaky stuff. Hitting the bishop. Unprotected piece. Maybe the white rook is no longer going to swing across the board, but maybe the white queen sometime can kind of join the action from this angle later. First, how do we deal with this bishop? Actually, I'm thinking about it. This knight on the edge of the board is completely trapped. So black has to be careful here.
Well, so you have to be very accurate where you put the bishop then, because as you point out, you could lose that knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
drop it back.
Yeah.
Is there a knight takes pawn in some positions as well?
Yeah.
He has dropped it back.
Has dropped the bishop back to a safe square, and knight takes pawn, you mentioned, Simon, distracting the black queen. So after a trade here, will we see it? Suddenly the black queen is overloaded. She can take the white bishop, but then she loses the knight on the edge of the board, and white is a safe pawn up. But then black does have the bishop pair, I guess. Not completely dead yet. OK, now he drops back. What is this? Levon's kind of changing his mind on every turn. He hit this bishop away from, I guess, a decent square, but now he stepped back. To attack this pawn.
Kind of clever, right? Because his pawn in the centre's under less pressure.
Maybe.
yeah, I mean, it's either clever or not. It's one of those cases where, and yeah, like you say, though, this is the only way to defend it, this rook move, and this is an ugly, ugly rook move to play. But White, how does White make progress now?
Yeah, White needs to somehow get this bishop, get this rook into the game.
Yeah.
Those are the only two pieces that are currently unemployed.
I suppose you can just move them then. I mean, simply.
Lift it up, get rid of this defender, maybe.
Do we think the tournament's going to be over with this game? I mean, what does everyone think?
Feels that way.
Yeah? What do you reckon? Do you reckon this is going to be the last game with this?
I don't know, actually. I mean, because I think, yeah, we're also, especially me, you know, I'm seeing the evaluation bar and I'm saying, OK, White is winning. White's coordination looks fantastic. But then again, there might not be an immediate win, and this might frustrate Levon. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and say, I don't think this is going to be the last game.
OK. David?
I think it will be, just because when we've seen the clock tick down and both sides being lower on time, Levon's nerves have been stronger.
Yeah, that's true.
And it does feel like if he can find a few accurate moves now, if he can hold an advantage when they both tick down under 2 minutes, then he's a big favourite, I think, Levon Aronian. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, next 3 or 4 moves, if he doesn't find anything, as Jovanka says, if there's nothing direct and he gets frustrated, we could see a turnaround. Okay, he drops the bishop back. That's clever, I guess, creating a square for the white knight. We mentioned the outpost that the bishop was previously sitting on. The white knight wants to use that square now. The white knight on g3 wants to hop into the centre, attacking black's rook, attacking some key pawns. That looks clever.
Yeah, I like that.
I didn't see that at all. Very nice.
Yeah.
And, wow.
Black's pieces are just clumsy.
Maybe it's now time for Wei Yi just to actually do something about the knight that's stranded. No, he pushes the pawn forward, attacking the knight. But it does lengthen the diagonal for the bishop, which, if I were playing with the white pieces, I would feel immediately quite happy about that.
Yeah, so big question, do we jump into that beautiful f5 square? Do we just retreat the white knight? A couple of choices here. That knight on the edge of the board attacked.
Yeah, I guess you always look at going forwards first. I mean, you know, if you can. And I think multiple exchanges are OK, but
yeah,
I don't know.
F for forward, so f5 square. That looks very sensible.
Looks like the most obvious, anyway, to not retreat, but to jump in.
I guess the one thing that will make him hesitate is that black's pieces are a bit cramped, so maybe he doesn't want to exchange pieces, but OK, he goes for it. Too tempting. We'll see black's knight eliminate that piece.
Yeah.
And why the knight? Why is it the knight he will use to eliminate it?
Black's light-squared bishop, I guess, just controls all the light squares. If you trade off black's light-squared bishop, there's a chance that white's queen and bishop are lined up on the light squares will be able to sneak in a bit later. Usually, I don't know why, maybe it's a bad habit of mine, but when I look at a bunch of captures, if I got 2 pieces, a knight and a bishop, that can capture the same thing, I always think knights before bishops. And I don't know why, it's just an instinct. I mean, most of the time it does work out that way. A knight capture first is more logical, but occasionally you've got to flip the move order. So bishop, the black bishop on c8, taking the knight, also quite logical. What will Wei Yi do? Low on the clock again?
He has ticked under 5 minutes, Wei Yi. It's not a must-win situation, but he cannot lose this game. And he takes with a knight.
Yep.
And now what do you take with this question? I mean, I would probably take with a bishop here without thinking, because I want to get the light squares in the middle, but...
I would take with the knight without thinking.
Yeah, but I'm thinking maybe the knight's even... But OK.
Here's for your one, Simon.
Clearly.
You and Levon, kindred spirits.
And the evaluation bar drops.
But, I mean, you make a good argument here, because white's knight on this square, we could see the exact same position, but with white's light-squared bishop on this square instead of white's knight. And we did talk about f5. We see the patterns. We know how effective those knights can be.
Yeah.
That is pretty much an outpost for the white knight, defended by its queen.
But
I was just thinking, you know, white could start to get an iron grip on the position. You know, you can see a position, you kind of envision a future where the queen just steps forward, protects the pawn, the knight is reinforced, and maybe the rook will just swing over to the left. OK, this requires some help and for black to do absolutely nothing. But, OK, yeah, he steps back with the knight, which I also quite like, you know, again, just keeping control on the position. And if you still manage to utilise the plan of developing the light dark square bishop, get the rook over to the left.
Yeah.
This is just domination.
It is, and we could imagine a situation as well. Black ends up with a really bad bishop. For example, say we give a few moves to either side here, and we see a trade of bishop for knight. This is what we would call a good knight against a bad bishop, because Black's bishop will never break out from behind its own pawns, really, at least not without giving up material. And White's knight has access into all the light squares, and this is just beautiful for White. So in the current position, where he needs to be the quick one, he needs to do something. He is attacking his pawn now with his queen move. This is one you highlighted earlier, Simon, the queen sitting on a decent square now.
So, yeah, I mean, he's holding on well, isn't he? I think his chances have got better to hold this. I don't think he's going to win this position, but he hasn't dropped any material or any major concessions yet. OK, he's got some weak squares, but, that's, I think, a blessing for him considering what it could have been.
Yeah. I'm expecting White to just defend this pawn. You could, for example, defend it with a rook. You would love to defend it with the queen, as Ivanka said, but now I guess this pawn is up for grabs. So we need to just keep an eye on this one. I was wondering briefly what happens if White's knight goes to attack the rook, but there are a couple of safe squares for it. I guess it can just slide across. Pretty safe temporarily, and still problems. White's problem, I guess the only one, is this isolated pawn in the middle. It's great if you keep it, but it is vulnerable. So just defend, Levon, and go active a bit later.
Well, the bar has definitely gone down. Levon is now left with 4 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, I like what he did in the game, though. It's made it really exciting. From move 1, there have been kind of twists and turns. Mostly positive for White, but still, he's been kind of giving Levon some different types of headaches to what he's faced so far in this final. Wow, Levon surprising us all.
That is a very surprising move.
Is it a good move or a bad one?
Wow.
It's hard to say. What's his plan if that pawn is just captured? Which it has to be, right?
I guess his queen wants to dive in, right? I mean, this is the only move I can see, but
okay,
risky stuff. Both under 4 minutes now.
Yeah, again, I guess we have to investigate, and the evaluation bar says, nope, don't like it. So White's pawn stepping forward. Too much pressure here. Black will take this pawn, surely.
Yeah, if the queen comes in.
Yep, White's queen can jump in, and I guess the Black knight, which is attacked, can retreat.
Back.
At least the Black knight has a nice square. At least things are protected now for Black temporarily.
Well, he's taken it without much thought there, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what the plan is soon.
I guess the White bishop can come and try and take this pawn. That might be one idea. White's knight could also jump forward at some point. But actually, yeah, I mean, there's counterplay. This pawn is hanging, for example, in some variations. It's really complicated suddenly after giving up this pawn. I mean, this guy is also attacked, so White's queen surely has to jump in. What else? Very strange. Levon suddenly hand on his head.
Yeah.
Does he feel like he's losing control?
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time, maybe just sensing the finishing line in the match. He's losing a bit of, just losing his nerve slightly.
A little bit impatient, perhaps, trying to just put the ball in the back of the net quickly. And I don't think he even thought that this move was possible. I think he probably just then, oh, the queen dives in, great position, and
that's a one-move calculation, though. I'm sure he saw that the Black knight can retreat.
Yeah, but sometimes people just make assumptions. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and they just assume that these kind of moves are, passive.
It's a bit weird that he's fallen into fort here, isn't it, Ivanka? Then because why is he now thinking?
Yeah.
It's like he's just sacrificed the pawn. The guy's taken the pawn, and he's now thinking. Seems odd. It seems odd to do it that way around. So.
2.5 minutes for Levon Aronian.
Yeah, he needs to find something now. What is he going to play? Is he going to just defend his central pawn? Is he going to jump in with the white queen, as we showed? Levon, 2 minutes on the clock. We're just over 3 minutes.
Could see a fight back. We could see a fight back. Maybe this is the luck that Wei needs, and it's a lot easier playing in his situation in a lot of ways, because you got nothing to lose, right? I mean, you've probably lost the match. You can just play chess, take pawns, just play without any pressure whatsoever. Okay, so Lev playing. This couldn't have been what he had planned, though. Surely, this.
Now, big question is: can Black capture a pawn with his rook? Black's rook can capture the f2 pawn. It's risky, it's a bit loose for black, but that's the first move you want to calculate right now for Wei Yi, establish a material advantage. I guess Levon, his idea is to just ignore everything on the king side right now, just go and grab a pawn with his queen, put pressure on black's knight. Levon did slightly shake his head while he was doing his usual stretching. OK, black's rook keeping the pawn alive. Black's rook defends the 4th rank. That's quite a nice move, actually. Just hoping that white maybe steps a pawn up to attack that rook, because that would weaken the white-king structure.
But it feels like the momentum is shifting towards Wei Yi. I mean, I love this rook on the 4th row, and it can actually centralise itself and start looking at that completely lonesome pawn in the centre.
Yeah, Levon shook his head again there. Wei Yi thinking. I mean, it's so tempting to capture that white f2 pawn, I've got to say.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Next move.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you're going to get some attacking chances when you take a pawn like that as well.
Exactly.
I mean, even if it's an illusion. But I think, like, yeah, black is in the driving seat at the moment with a slight time advantage. You could grab that pawn or do the move Ivanka mentioned, put the rook in the centre. Looks very sensible as well.
Very, very sensible.
Maybe that will lead to mass exchanges, though, and a likely draw. I think taking the pawn near the king is the way to keep this game going, keep the complications alive.
Yeah. I mean, in some positions as well, black's central pawn, the e-pawn could step forward, just unleashing black's bishop. You might not want to do that yet, but in the near future, that's on the cards. Wei Yi has to move, though, both sides at exactly 2 minutes, pretty much.
It feels like this game will end up with a winner.
Yeah.
Even if the bar is in the middle of the bar.
Feels that way. Feels that way. I mean, it's been so much tension already.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like it's heated up. And Wei Yi didn't look happy for a second there.
No.
Was he calculating something, then he realised, oh, it doesn't work?
Yeah, it looks
Needs to
that
move
way.
soon.
But OK, he has to be practical. Just over 1.5 minutes left on the clock, and it's crunch time. Now is his moment. Has to take a decision, and we are advocating that the rook should just be bold and grab the pawn closest to the king, and then things will get very, very spicy. And we could just see Levon Aronian. You know, he had his hands over his head, concentrating hard, getting ready for the ensuing mess that's going to happen. But now, Wei Yi is just over 1 minute.
It's not a good time to have a long think.
No.
I mean, you've just spent 2/3 of your time on this position. He had 3 minutes, and now he's got under a minute. That is not... I mean, this has been a reoccurring issue. His time handling has got him into a lot of trouble. That's how he... OK, he's played the move we wanted him to play, and Aronian quickly grabs that pawn. And now the move that David mentioned, releasing the bishop in front of the black king. This is really actually heating up greatly now. And, yeah, getting very exciting.
Yeah, black's bishop has some great potential suddenly for the first time in the game. And black's bishop has just been a dead piece, just a block of wood. And now it threatens to maybe come into the d4 square, line up against the white king, line up against the white knight. Black is also temporarily at least a pawn up. I didn't see any way for white to kind of win material here. You can go and grab a pawn for white, and wow, Stockfish, the computer says there's only one move to avoid defeat for Levon Aronian. And it's not 100% obvious. Maybe by process of elimination he'll get there, but white's bishop has to take a step back to challenge the black bishop. You have to go back to the c3 square, try and trade off the bishops right now. I guess the idea actually is that black's big threat is to swing the black rook across behind the white queen to attack it, utilising the fact it's defended by black's bishop. So you prevent that big threat, but that's counterintuitive, retreating a piece.
Well, he has to do it. Black has really
He's found
huge
it.
piece.
Finds it.
And, yeah, well, now we're seeing a few trades. But hang on a second. Doesn't this favour white? Because black's king is now looking a little bit airy.
Yeah, and look at Stockfish again. Now, most moves give white a decent advantage. Black's only move to prevent a big white advantage is to actually retreat the black rook all the way to
No
the
one will
6th rank.
play that.
Well, they will, actually, because there's a huge threat on the board. The knight is threatening to come to the g4 square,
Okay.
attacking the rook, and
Yeah,
also
yeah.
threatening knight takes pawn.
make
That is a
that
killer
spot.
move.
Yeah, this is a massive...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not this one. Me and my arrows. This is a massive threat right now.
Okay.
And as Jovanka mentions, if black does nothing, black retreats the knight. This hits the rook and, more importantly, hits this pawn with a deadly kind of knight fork. So he has stopped this. He stopped it in the most kind of direct way. Here, he just brought his rook back to cover this square. But what happens if this rook is kicked?
Or maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it steps forwards. We'll see.
I guess the rook, if it's attacked, will step either back or into the white position.
And now the queen can dive in, right?
Can you not just centralise here, hit the queen, use the queen to hit the knight, maybe? OK, it has dived in instead in the current position, the white queen. As you mentioned, Jovanka, hitting the knight. Yeah, things turning back in Levon Aronian's favour. It's very, very loose, and it's all about the king safety. This king is weaker than its counterpart. White king, super safe, actually.
Yeah, I mean, even if black's doing OK here, the issue is practically, and now white can just take the pawn and middle board, getting his material back. Practically, king safety. It's the most important thing when you get short of time. And practically, black's king very, very exposed. White's king relatively safe here. So Lev won't want to be exchanging queens here. He can start going for the king, get the rook in. A lovely idea. Your knight, look at the white knight. The white knight is a superb piece. It controls checkmate squares. It can jump forwards. It's a brilliant piece in the middle of the board. And this is he's played it. Getting very exciting now.
Might be about to see the final few moves of the whole tournament, because this is a deadly check threat. And if black just pushes a pawn, for example, or does something, this is a check, and black's queen will be skewered on the 7th rank. Deadly threat, and it's not easy to prevent, actually, this check, the rook coming in to the 7th rank.
10 seconds.
10 seconds for Wei Yi. I don't see how to stop this. It is...
What he did this last? I call just.
With a few seconds left on his clock, he offers a queen trade. White can say no. White can just reject this and drop back with the queen if he really wants. White's queen can even jump in. This looks really scary, though. A check. You have to drop your knight back now, otherwise you get skewered yet again on the 7th rank. So you have to drop your knight back.
Very passive position.
Hanging by a thread. White can kind of double pin your knight right now.
He's gone in.
He's given a check. The black knight has blocked. What else? There must be a win for Levon. Worst comes to worst, you just push a pawn. Create some breathing space for your king. Bring the white knight in to this square that you guys were talking about. It looks like everything's falling.
Yeah, you got two tempting squares to the rook as well. You've got the back rank and you've got the one supported by the pawn trying to come over the old swinger operation. And both of these moves actually also look good. There's a lot of tempting moves here for white. I actually quite like your h3. Why not just play it safe? But he's gone in for an aggressive move first of all. Black all the way back now.
Look how defensive it is for black. All these pieces stuck, pinned, trapped, and he does play this move. This is just a very kind of blitz, rapid chess type of move. Push a pawn, make sure your king won't get caught on the back rank. You have some breathing space. Big threat in the position as well. The white knight coming in. And wow, OK, the black queen slides across, trying to jump in with some checks. Wei Yi fighting really hard, actually.
Yeah, this is a great resource from Wei Yi. He might just have enough counterplay because he can get the queens off in a lot of positions if the knight jumps in now. Surely that would help him with very close, well, maybe a drawn ending. So possibly Lev missed this, right? I mean, if you continue with your knight jump, then, yeah, the queens get exchanged, and then black's king is in no danger whatsoever. And even though you might lose a pawn here, I think very good drawing chances.
Yep. And the white king shuffles into the corner. Really fascinating stuff. Just avoiding any checks for now. But Levon's slightly shaking his head. Black's still alive. Wei Yi fighting for his life in this tournament.
Wow. The rooks are swinging in this game. The bar is swinging in this game. Levon winning, Wei Yi winning. It's a draw. Who knows what this will end up with?
Who knows? And great move by Wei Yi, attacking the white rook. And you can't take that black knight because the white rook would have fallen, so we see a trade. Suddenly, you talked about white's knight being strong, Simon. Black's knight is equally strong.
Yeah, I think black's over the worst now. And, well, with this move, clearly Lev is like, OK, draw. This is just agreeing that he's missed his opportunity and we're going to get another game.
You have to be slightly careful as white. The black king will get very active soon. But, yeah, as Simon says, it should be a draw. There's not many pawns remaining, and this will eliminate a few more pawns, this last move. I'm just wondering whether we'll see a moment like the last game where suddenly one side self-destructs in a drawn position. We can't write the game off too early. The last game, Wei Yi, one move in a dead drawn position, and it was over.
Yeah. He only has 20 seconds left now, 25.
Levon.
Is he still playing for? Still maybe playing for a win with that move as well, because he could have swapped off one more pawn and got a little bit closer to the draw. But this move's a little bit more playing for the win at least. Now you can check maybe.
White will give a check. Black's king will step back.
Yeah, and I was going to ask whether Wei Yi will be feeling bold, whether he will try and play for more, sensing that the tide is perhaps turning.
I think it'll be too risky for Wei Yi here. I think at least if he survives this game, where he's been on the brink for a long time, at least he gets 2 more games. Or at least the next one. Okay, he is playing for the win as black.
Wow.
I'm surprised at King F4,
Yeah, it's so bold.
Well,
it's so unnecessary. Suddenly white is a pawn up.
But it's not any pawn, it's the rook's pawn, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like the rook's pawn is so good in a knight ending.
Yeah.
But the white knight's trapped, right? The white knight is trapped.
White knight has only 1 square to go to, and that's the top of the board. It can go to the G8 square, but look at the evaluation bar.
Swinging again.
Wei Yi, that's the thing. He's playing for wins in positions where he should just get out of the game with a draw. The same in the last game. This one too. At least if he drew this one with white in a must-win situation, maybe slightly easier. If he won that, that's the first step. Okay, the white knight does escape.
And
Black king, is it going back to stop Harry the H-pawn there?
I think it has to. I think it's forced. 14 seconds and the clock is ticking down for Wei Yi. He has to keep an eye on that runaway H-pawn. If he doesn't do that, he's running the risk of losing.
Well, a few seconds left. 3 seconds when he made that move, retreating. The white pawn will simply step forward. Black's king has to kind of chase that pawn now. And the white king is coming.
Is Levon winning again?
Maybe. It's on the brink between winning and drawing for white right now. There's no chance black will win this game, but why would you ever go for this position as Wei Yi? The black knight is currently doing a good job creating a barrier, stopping the white king from kind of stepping forward again. But
he just wanted to make the game last a bit longer.
Wait one second. I mean, can't Levon just push the H-pawn? OK, he's done that. Give it up and get the knight out of its prison and win a pawn. Make Wei Yi suffer for some extra moves. And he doesn't have much time on the clock.
Yeah, and of course it should be a draw with only 2 white pawns left, but I think...
this will be a draw.
But, I mean, OK, and he's...
OK, he has won a pawn at least.
But he's got to
still prove it.
He's got to prove it, yeah.
He's got to work hard for his money, right?
Well, maybe that's...
I think he should clinch the draw with this last move.
And Aronian looking annoyed there with himself, really annoyed. So...
He knows he was winning for a whole chunk of the game, but he knows deep in the end game he got given another golden opportunity. But Wei Yi now looks pretty relaxed. He knows that this will go to a 3rd game. The problem is for white, the white D-pawn that's far advanced will be stopped by the black king. White's G-pawn is just going to fall unless white goes super passive with his king. But if you go passive with your king, that's not a good sign. And simply black's king is going to march towards the D-pawn. Eventually black's knight is going to give itself up so that Wei Yi can eliminate both the white pawns. We will see this happen. I'm expecting the black king now to just go towards the white knight. There we go. Yeah. And no way to keep both the pawns alive. Is there a trap in the position? A small trap if the black king moves across maybe, but this is safe chess. He gives up the knight and eliminates the final white pawn. Not enough checkmating material. It's a draw. We will see a game 3.
We will see a game 3, but Levon Aronian is still in the lead, and Wei Yi, he has to win game 3 to have any hopes of taking this to tie breaks. Game 3 will start in 15 minutes. Levon looking